Hello, everyone, and welcome back to A Theater Near You. My name is Kris Randazzo, and I'm joined this evening, as always, by literal tank pilot Paul Giroux.
Hey there, everybody.
And surprisingly good cook, Sean Doyle.
Ahoy, hoy! Bam!
This month's movie was the reboot/remake/movie adaptation of The A-Team. How has it fared after all these years? Let's find out. But first, how are you, gentlemen?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I can't complain. I mean, I could, but I'd just be complaining at this point.
Complaining for the sake of complaining.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to complain. Do you want me to complain?
You know what? Go for it. Have at it.
The beginning of my week has not been that great, right? and here's why. My kid has dug these little holes in the backyard, right? And when I questioned him about it, I was like, why are you digging these little holes in the backyard? And he's got all these things. He's like, oh yeah, I'm putting these miniature hippos by the hole, so it's like a watering hole for the miniature hippos, you know? And I was like, can we just fill in the hole when you're done? Like, can we not have these danger holes out here when I'm mowing the lawn? And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. And then, you know, of course he doesn't, so there's just danger holes all over my backyard. So Sunday, I was like, all right, go get the dog. We're going to wash the dog. Like, you go out there and leash her up. So he goes out, walks around the side of the house, and then the next thing I hear is, ah! So walked right into a danger hole, twisted his ankle, and then, you know, for the fact that, like, he could actually go back to school, and I've been so happy that I have time during the day, he's had to be remote all week because he can't get
his ankle.
Yeah, he's on this. He's got like an air cast, and he had to go get a X-ray to make sure that it wasn't broken. So, you know, he's hobbling around here in this little cast, driving me nuts, all because he dug all these stupid holes in the backyard. You know, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's a shame. Like, poor guy. He must be, you know, he must feel bad. He must be really hurt." And I'm like, "You should have been digging dumb holes."
Yeah, like when your kid gets hurt, but it's totally their fault, you immediately want to think like, okay, is he okay? And then the second you realize they're available, like, see, this is why you don't dig holes all over the yard. This is why I told you not to jump on the furniture, because eventually you're going to fall off and conk your head on the table. And yeah, it sucks. And now I get to pour hydrogen peroxide on your open wound, and you're going to hate that shit, but maybe you'll remember not to jump on the couch next time.
Well, it is a movie podcast, but I do thank you for giving me the chance to vent.
Anytime. That's what we're here for. All right, so we are talking about the A-Team. So let's get some of the basics out of the way. The A-Team released on June 11th, 2010, and was distributed by 20th Century Fox. It was directed by Joe Carnahan, who also directed 2002's Narc, 2006's Smokin' Aces, and the upcoming Boss Level starring Ryan Reynolds. The A-Team was an adaptation of the 1983 TV series by the same name, starred Liam Neeson, Bradley Cooper, Quentin Rampage Jackson, Charlton Copley, Jessica Biel, Patrick Wilson, and Yul Vasquez. The screenplay was done by Joe Carnahan, Brian Bloom, and Skip Woods.
Wait, hang on. Are you guys telling me that you watched some new A-Team and that I spent last night watching every episode of the 1983 to 1987 classic TV show, The A-Team? Is that what you're telling me?
You'll be fine, because the movie was a 27-hour shot-for-shot remake of the original, so it's going to line up. The conversation will be seamless.
It's hard to know if I have a thing, as we've only had 2 episodes of this podcast, but I'd like to say that's my thing, to say that I watched a completely different thing than the rest of you.
Oh, God, is this podcast only about remakes and redos? Because that's where we're at the moment.
Wow, we are 2 for 2 on that. I will say that if you did actually go through and watch the old series, I have some questions. Because I acquired a friend of mine, Evan, is capable of pretty much giving me anything I want through nefarious means. And he gave me all of the original series to watch. So I tried to watch a little bit of it before we recorded so that I could just kind of bone up on that. And when Sean got here, because Sean's recording in the same room as me this week, and when he got here, I was, watching a little bit of the first episode, and then we backed out into the main menu and saw the cover for season 5, and there was another dude there. Oh. And what was his name?
Frankie Sinatra.
Frankie Santana. We thought it was Sinatra at first because the title went by so fast. Frankie Santana. It was like a 5th dude.
I think I know a little bit about this. I watched the whole series, but not recently. When there was a period of time where it was available on Netflix, and I, sat and watched them all like a crazy person, one after the other. But apparently George Papard and Mr. T did not get along. Like, they were not best buddies on set, and like George Papard was the biggest name on the show and didn't like it that Mr. T had increasingly, gained popularity very quickly and was kind of like the breakout star of the show. So they brought in some other guy in the 5th season because it was like George Papard's buddy, and they like were trying to make him happy. Like, they were trying to make the set less tense and him not always be at Mr. T. I don't know. Like, I think the other guy was like a villain, but like sometimes he managed them. Like, he promised them that he could clear their names, and sometimes he worked with the A-Team, but sometimes he was like a villain. It was sort of confusing.
Was he like the small Latino guy? Because that's who we're talking about.
I think he's talking about the guy that I thought was in charge of the CIA.
Yeah, that guy. What's that? I've seen that guy in other stuff too.
Frankie Santano, or whatever his name was, is like this almost intentionally ethnic-y looking Italian Spanishy guy, but like over the top, like 1980s style over the top, like where they're leaning into it. And then there was another guy that looked like he was closer to George Papar's age. And that guy is, I think, who you're talking about. Like, sometimes he was trying to clear him, sometimes he was chasing him. And I thought that guy's position, having not recently rewatched it, I thought he was like the head of the CIA or the head of like he was in charge of catching them. But you're right. Sometimes he would give them missions. Sometimes it seemed like he was going to help them. I think that's who you're talking about. This was another guy who was like young, and he had like a long black ponytail.
Played by Eddie Velez.
And he was kind of in shape. Like, he seemed like if he wasn't standing next to Mr. T, you'd be like, well, that guy's pretty strong.
Then I have no memory of this, and I cannot tell you who that guy is.
Yeah, I don't have any memory either.
I had no memory of this Frankie Santana guy either. And I'm trying to find the, what's his name? I can't remember what else I've seen him in. Like, he's super familiar to me. Stockwell? Is that guy's name?
Yeah, Stockwell was the guy that was George Papard's friend, or the character. That
Robert Vaughn. There you go.
Vaughn,
yeah, that guy. What do I know him from? Let's see. Superman
that's the guy, not the ponytail guy. The other guy, right? Yeah. I can't remember what his position was. I guess he wasn't the head of the Phoenix Foundation, but I wish that he was, because then you'd have like a tie-in over to MacGyver. It'd be awesome.
Well, he was in Pootie Tang. Oh, I remember him from Law and Order.
Oh,
yeah,
well,
I remember that.
I mean, if he was in Pootie Tang, then what more is there?
Really, that's the pinnacle of your career right there.
Obviously. When you mentioned the thing about Netflix watching all of the A-Team, I was thinking, we've all been there. You just got a couple days down. You're like, I guess MacGyver was my thing that I went to. I was like, what was in the 80s that I liked? Let me just watch all of MacGyver. Yeah. And you know what? While it might not be as great as you remember it, the theme song is amazing, and it was still way better than that reboot they came out with a few years ago. So,
yeah, and sometime in the middle of season 3, you go, well, I guess we're doing this. Like, come this far.
What am I going to stop now?
That doesn't make any sense.
So let's get to how we watched the movie. I watched this in my living room with my wife this time. We watched it on our Blu-ray, which we own because this movie rules. We watched the extended edition, which is on the Blu-ray. And honestly, I can't remember what's new for the extended edition over the theatrical one because we've just been watching the extended edition for all these years. And the only snacks I had were a glass of chocolate milk. No snacks for me. What about Sean? What about you? How did you watch?
So it's been hot this week, and so we watched in the bedroom because I haven't put in the window unit. We only have built-in air conditioning in the bedroom for some reason because it's the 80s. And so we watched in there, and I did watch with my girlfriend, but we watched on the bedroom TV, which we have to replace because it now takes about 10 minutes to turn on. It does that thing where you turn it on, and it like kind of turns on, then it turns off, and then it turns on by itself and turns itself off by itself for, I don't know. At first it was like 10 seconds, but it's up to like a good 4 or 5 minutes. Like, we'll turn the TV on before we go in the room because we're like, we're going to need it in a little while.
It doesn't seem okay.
No, it's not okay.
It's a good thing that, COVID protocols are starting to relax and things are opening up again, because you're going to need to take a trip to the arcade and get yourself a new TV.
That's the first thing I said to her. I was like, well, how many tickets do we have on our card? She was like, we got like 80, 90,000. I was like, we don't need in the living room, we got like, it's like a 55-inch that we got with the tickets, but that was like 800,000 or 900,000 tickets. But like in the bedroom's a little bit smaller. I don't know, 40-inch should be big enough. I think what we got in there now is like, I don't know, like 37 or something. That's plenty big. I don't know. So we got to fix that, but that's what I watched it on. Once that TV revs up, once the engine really gets firing, then it's fine. And snack-wise, I had myself a beer and some potato chips. And the potato chips, I believe, were barbecue, if I remember correctly. And that was my movie snack.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, while Sean was telling that story, I'm glad we didn't get into a whole conversation about how many inches are appropriate for the bedroom, because could have taken this podcast somewhere else, but I didn't.
Sean's upset that he missed this joke.
Yeah, be happy about that. Yeah, so I'm gonna start the story of my experience with the A-Team a year ago. I'm gonna start it a little over a year ago, right?
All right.
Because so bring yourself back to last year, just before this time, when everything started shutting down, and like everything you were doing was like in your house under your blanket, like hiding from the world, and then you'd get food delivered and you'd like wipe everything down and like hide and eat it in a corner. I don't know if you remember like that whole like thing that we went through.
Thanks for making us relive that. Thank you.
Right. But when we were like all trapped in our houses and bored, I was looking around on the internet one day, and Second Spin, which I had ordered many CDs and DVDs from over the year, was going, or over the last couple of years, was going out of business this around this time last year. And I was watching them put stuff on Facebook that was like 20% off, 30% off, and then at a certain point they were like 70% off, and then I was like, I can't afford not to go on here and buy a bunch of DVDs. So I bought a stack of CDs and DVDs when they were going out of business, and the A-Team was one of them. It was just like I like this movie, I'm gonna watch this movie. I don't know, I guess all the like streaming stuff and other stuff we've had, I haven't cracked it open in a year, so I was like, I know I have this DVD on my bookshelf, but like when you said, hey, we're doing this next, I was like, oh yeah, this movie, and so again, like I had planned on watching it a couple days in advance of our recording, and again I was like, wait, we're recording tomorrow? Like guess I better do this. Yeah, I don't know. I watched it last night. My wife and I watched it in our basement on our TV, where we, watch everything basically, because I'm not somebody that likes to watch stuff on computers. And I ate some motherfucking pie from Perkins while I was watching it.
Motherfucking pie. Come on, little baby.
And it was a great night.
Motherfucking pie.
You guys both had DVDs that might have both been extended editions. I just watched whatever was streaming.
Well, you know what? That's
So you had a DVD, right? Not the Blu-ray?
No, I had the Blu-ray, and I did watch the extended cut. Because, again, I put it in after not having, popped the thing in for a year, and then I was like, I have two choices? And I was like, well, of course I want to see this extended cut. But now I don't remember what was in the theatrical cut, so I don't know where it differs. Like, I don't know what the alternative was.
I honestly don't either. And like, we had watched this pretty recently, and I was thinking like, well, maybe we should watch the theatrical cut just so that I could tell the difference. And then I said, no, I don't want to watch a shorter version of this movie.
Well, now I'm wondering if I would have liked the theatrical cut better. Because, I did like this movie a great deal when it came out. After watching it the other night, I was like, I don't know if it holds up quite as well as I thought it did. But that, maybe some of that was the extended cut, that I had not realized that I was watching something different, or that I thought I was getting something better, and maybe it wasn't better. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that one of the issues, now I adore this movie. I'll watch it over and over again. I just love it. But if I had to critique it, which I guess that's kind of why we're here. It's not really. It's kind of mishmashy. Like and there does seem to be a few extra talky scenes in the extended version that maybe weren't there in the original one that kind of keep it a little bit tighter, because where this movie works is like, I wrote down, and I had a couple of notes. The movie's just incredibly chaotic, but it does a really great job of capturing the chaos in a strikingly digestible way. And that mostly has to do with like, the cast just has this incredible chemistry, but that's for a lot of the action sequences and all the stuff that's the glue that's between the action sequences. Some of it's great, and then some of it's very like, I don't know, the plot is super convoluted in this, right? Like, I'm not even sure I really followed what was happening the whole time the first time I saw the movie, and I didn't care, because, they tried to fly a tank, and that was hysterical. Every time I see that scene, I just crack up hysterically. I just love the over-the-top ridiculous action sequences in this. But if I really had to try and nail down, like, what is it about this movie that other people didn't like? Because this movie kind of tanked. It barely made its money back. It is definitely not getting a sequel. Obviously by now it's been, 12 years or whatever, 11 years, but it didn't perform well, and I gotta wonder why, because it seems like this seemed like so much fun, and I loved it so much, so maybe it was that people didn't want to go see it because it was confusing? I don't know, but...
Well, I mean, so here's some thoughts that I have, if we're sort of ready to jump in. You mentioned the scene about the tank, and honestly, like, that's one of the best. I think that is the best scene in the whole movie, and I'm sure we're gonna get into that later. But like, just sort of looking at where the movie started out, because it's a lot of, I mean, as you would expect an A-Team movie to be, it's a lot of like crazy blockbuster, fast-paced action sequences, split up by plot, like split up by plot point, and it's almost like waiting for when are we going to be able to, to do the next action sequence. And so when we watched the beginning of the movie last night, and it was the like part where they're all meeting, it was the part where they all sort of like, meet in the desert and like become a team. By the time it was over and the thing said the A-Team, I paused it and I was like, that was 20 minutes until they like told, until the like, boom, this is the A-Team thing, right? And then also I sort of picked that apart, and I was like, why do these people even remotely want to keep working together, right? So first of all, Hannibal's plan there, like, really heavily hinged on those cartel guys not using their own guns, right? If just one of them was like, fuck it, man, just shoot him with your gun, like, he was sunk, like, that was it, like, and that was the beginning of the movie, right? And then, when he meets BA, which I thought, the introduction of BA was really great, but when he meets BA and he, like, shoots him in the arm and is like, come on, like, you gotta help me. I was like, why the fuck is this guy even gonna remotely help him after he shot him in the arm? And then they have this whole conversation about how they're both airborne rangers. And then, I was like, you guys are spending a lot of time talking, considering they're gonna kill Face. Like, this is like a whole scene, and you're rushing to get to your buddy. Like, this seems like crazy, right? So, so there was that whole thing, and also I think I was a little confused too about how they all became active duty military at the end of this, because BA said something, and maybe Sean can answer some of this for me, but BA said something about like, yeah, I was dishonorably discharged for some bullshit. And then I was like, wait a minute. So how then are they in Iraq, later on when they've been a unit at the A-Team and been working together for like 8 years? Yeah, I mean, just between that and like, meeting Murdoch and him like lighting people on fire and stuff like that. I was like, these guys have no reason to keep being buddies after this. So I don't know. That was one thing that sort of struck me about the beginning of the movie.
So I'll jump in on that because one, and I enjoyed the movie, so I'll defend it a little bit. And I'm not saying it didn't have its issues, but I enjoyed it. So one, it's almost paying homage to the original '80s TV show, from what I remember of it. And again, it's been a while since I watched it, but just the kind of the hodgepodge of bad plans that barely worked out and could have gone wrong on the turn of a dime, and the talking while there's a serious issue going on elsewhere, that they're just like, let's have a conversation while Face is about to die. Like, that seems reminiscent to me. As far as them being friends, that sounds about right. I don't know how many Rangers you know. I don't know a lot of them, but I remember when Simons and Vince met, and Vince was a Marine, which is different, but not really. The first time they met, they just beat the crap out of each other in the woods for like an hour and a half, like really just bloodied each other. And they're the best of friends. Like that was how they said hello. So Rangers and Marines, I'll lump them all in together, which will offend somebody. They've got a whole different mindset. So Hannibal shooting him, and then they both figure out they're Rangers and laughing it off. That sounds about right to me. That all felt right. As far as being dishonorably discharged and then somehow getting yourselves put in a unit together, that seems a little bit more like science fiction. But also, I've seen the military just, I don't know. If they want something to happen bad enough, they'll just make some paperwork disappear. They're pretty good at that too.
I mean, it seems to me like, and this is the headcanon that I pieced together. Like, this team, they work together and they do ridiculous stuff. So somebody at the army was like, we need a team that's really good at ridiculous stuff, so we're going to honorably recharge them so that we can use them to do ridiculous stuff. And that all happened off screen, and that's how it goes in my head.
Because that's not a great action movie.
Exactly.
A 6-hour hearing where they're undoing a dishonorable discharge and he's re-enlisting. Like this, none of that is good to see.
Which is to say that you could have just gone without the dishonorable discharge thing to begin with, and then no longer have to explain your way out of that situation. But whatever.
It would have been easier.
I'm 100% with you. It is a flawed movie, but it's so much fun that I don't care.
Well, which, I think that sort of brings me to, to my next sort of thought about it, which was, again, if you're dissecting this as action sequences, woven together with plot, the next action sequence, which I thought was a great deal better, was the sort of like Ocean's 11 style heist where they're where they're showing the model of the heist, and then the heist taking place as it's happening, which there's some ridiculous stuff about it, but for the most part I thought that one that was really well done. But prior to that, and Kris, you had mentioned that like some of the dialogue and the story is so convoluted and so fast paced that it's like hard to get through, and it takes you a little while to adjust to what's happening. I felt like that was the whole beginning of this before that heist, because it's a bunch of different government, different government groups, the DOD, the CIA, the Army, whatever, and they're all going like, listen, A-Team, there's this, these plates for making money, and the Iraqis are going to try to move them, and like, you don't want to get involved in this. There's nobody else that could do it. You guys are the only one that could do it, but you don't want to get involved in this. Trust me. And so like, to the point, like finally when they start the heist, I'm like, why are they doing this? And
that was just very clearly, Major Dad saying you don't want to get involved with this was his way of officially saying, go get involved in this, but I'm not telling you to get involved in this.
Right.
But then again, that wouldn't make any sense in the long term with his weird betrayal plot or whatever. I just wanted to quick point out that one of my notes was, this opening sequence is absolutely awesome. I love it.
I mean, I know that all of that stuff is what, actually facilitates them, getting incarcerated, and that, that it looks like they were trying to steal the plates, and that they have no proof of their chain of command because their superior officer is dead, or supposedly dead, right? Like, I know that that's the whole thing that, like, brings us into the A-Team as we know it, as Soldiers of Fortune. But, like, just the fact that it was 3 different groups all going like, oh, you're the only ones that could do it, A-Team, but don't do it. Like, it was a tough place to start from, I thought.
There was one criticism I read of the movie that never once occurred to me until I read it just the other day, and it is kind of a good point, is that the movie doesn't really do the thing that the show did, where they go around being soldiers of fortune, helping people on their, like, weird problems and stuff. Like, it's all kind of set up to get to that point, which is why I really wish there would have been a sequel so they could get involved in, like, some sort of weird situation where they're hired to help somebody do something. But that was kind of the whole premise of the TV show, is like they get hired to help people with stuff, and they didn't really do that in this.
If I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, but in the TV show, I don't think they ever actually got themselves paid. It was always like, oh, we'll just help you out. Here's some free Chinese food. And, like, it kind of defeated the soldier of fortune concept there. But, yeah, you're right. They didn't help anybody. They weren't heroes in this. They were just clearing their own name.
Yeah.
I guess they were saving the economy from whatever was going on with the plates, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean,
by the end, they had set themselves up for that, right? Because they were still, fugitives, and they escaped. And so at the end, they were ready to be the A-Team, going out and doing jobs together. But they didn't actually do that in the confines of the movie.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it could have and should have been like a trilogy, like, because this story was sort of their origin story, in more than one way. Like, it had to show them meeting, and then it had to show the event that made them outlaws, and then it was like the end of the TV show where they're trying to clear their name. It literally cut out all the stuff in the middle. Like, they could have had 2 more movies where they just were, where they had some big adventure that they had to go on to help somebody, where they were the A-Team.
And I would have loved that, because this cast was so much fun. A couple of small issues, like BA using Mr. T's lingo didn't sound quite natural. Like, him saying fool didn't really sound right to me.
The tattoos on the fist, though? Come on. I
thought Rampage Jackson was, like, he was great in that part. It was just, there was every now and then where he'd say something very specifically Mr. T, B.A. Baracus, and it, like, just kind of didn't really land for me. But that's a minor quibble, as opposed to my opinion, the only real weakness in the movie was Jessica Biel. I've never seen much of stuff with her in it, except for her series of cameos in BoJack Horseman were hysterical. So it's not like something personal against Jessica Biel. I just didn't really feel like her and Face had all that much chemistry. I don't know. She kind of stuck out like a sore thumb to me in this movie.
See,
am I nuts?
That's so funny, because I actually thought that Quentin Rampage Jackson was the best one in the movie. Like, he was by far my favorite. And, I know sometimes it was a little hard to see somebody that wasn't Mr. T, and I also think that that's forever going to be the biggest stain on this movie, was that it did not have Mr. T's blessing. Like, that just cuts me to the core. But I don't know, man.
Did you read that whole story about his blessing in this movie, and, like, how it didn't really make a lot of sense? Like, at first he was like, yeah, man, this is great. And then, like, he said something where, like, I don't really believe that this movie is doing the right thing. And then he cited a bunch of reasons that made no sense. Like, not even, are you talking about the same movie kind of thing? And then that was kind of the end of it.
Well, I think at first they were like, hey, we're making a, reboot of the A-Team. And he's like, great, when do I start? And they're like, no. Like, you're not in it. Like, like you could like make a cameo, but, like, you're not B.A. Baracus. And he's like, what are you talking about? I am B.A. Baracus. Like, the character is me. How are you going to get somebody else to be me? And it's like, Mr. T, literally actors do this all the time. It's their whole job. The whole industry revolves around it.
So I'm a huge Mr. T fan, and I don't know if you guys took the time to watch the Mr. T TV show that came out in like 2000. I'm just guessing. I'm going to say 2005. I think it was called I Pity the Fool. That might have been the name of it, where Mr. T goes around places and helps fix lives. Right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
like he showed up at like a car dealership, and he was like, "What's going on here? We got to sell a bunch of cars to keep this place alive. All right, let's do this thing."
It was called I Pity the Fool. It was from 2006.
Oh God, I'm good. I was like a year off. I was in the ballpark there. Well,
Ran
I got
for
that on
6 episodes.
Yeah, I got that on DVD, and it's the hotness. So if you listen to him in that, as much as I love him, I don't know that coherence is really like one of the tools in his bag at this point. Like, as much as he's high energy and super positive, like 1980s, exactly what you want the 1980s to have been in your like fondest of memories. That's what he brings to the table. But again, that's a different tool than coherent, logical, formulated arguments. So when you say he didn't give this his blessing and his reasons made no sense, I say, yeah, all right, well, I didn't know he didn't give it his blessing, but that all checks out.
All right, so real quick, this is from Wikipedia. Mr. T, the original B.A. Baracus, was offered a cameo but turned it down, feeling it would not be right for him to appear in the film if he did not play Baracus. In a 2010 interview with Script Magazine, director Joe Carnahan claimed that Mr. T, after viewing scenes from the film, thought the final product was, quote, the greatest thing in the world. After the premiere of the film, Mr. T allegedly stated that he had become disillusioned and felt the story emphasized sex and violence and that it was unfaithful to the original series. An attorney for Mr. T later stated that the actor had not yet seen the film and could not comment on it.
So I will say this, I don't know, again, from my vague memory of the original A-Team, there was a lot of gunfire and no one ever got hit, kind of like that G.I. Joe cartoon. So there definitely was some kills in this movie. So maybe he was just super 1980s about we can't show people dying. I don't know. Again, he's...
Yeah, like there was a whole plot point about his character not wanting to kill people.
Yeah.
Like, so,
Well, and I think that I mean, I could be totally wrong about this, but I think that was inserted into the movie because of Mr. T, right? I love Mr. T. You have to look at this objectively and divorce this movie from the guy that is Mr. T. And I think it's a shame that he couldn't do that, right? But to me, and like I have this argument with people all the time. I think Mr. T is one of the most influential what do you call it?
Icon?
Yeah, well,
personality,
I think he is
celebrity, cheesecake.
He is one of the cheesecake. Yes, that's the word. No, I just inspirational. That's the word. I think he is one of the most inspirational people whose stories I've ever heard. And I know it's silly because we think of him as this cheesy character actor that's just got his shtick lines. But I don't know. Mr. T has had a crazy life, man. He grew up on the south side of Chicago to a single mom. I think, Sean, you were the one that introduced me to his, rap song about his mom and, respecting your mother.
Yeah, it's a whole album. It's great.
Yeah, I think we listened to it one time. And then, he legally changed his name to Mr. T because he saw the way that, people were treating his father, that somebody called him boy or something like that, and that he was like, I'm not going to have anybody, address me if they don't use formal terms, and formally changed his name to Mr. T. And he the whole thing with the gold was sort of a status thing that there were certain places in Chicago that wouldn't let you in. And if you could actually show that you could afford to be there, if you wore your wealth on your neck, it was this sort of status thing. And then, he after the A-Team, which also I think he had, I think he sort of had a a big influence in like the content of the show and like it being a positive message. You know, like he was like, as B.A. Baracus, he was always doing these things like, kids don't do drugs, you know, like he was doing these, you know, announcements at the end of the show. He would go and like visit kids in the hospital, kids that, you know, like the like last wish kind of things. And then, you know, apparently like one of the reasons he dropped off the map in like the late 90s is because he got cancer. And then, you know, the dude fought cancer and beat it. And a lot of these kids that also did, like, were the ones that got him through it. Probably right before he started that crazy show where he had no business helping anybody, like, sell cars.
The show was great. The show was great. And
I remember the show.
I'm going to go into a quick... I'll try to make this a quick tangent. And Kris, you're welcome to cut this out. But you just brought it up. So now I don't know if either of you haven't heard this story. When I was young, I met Mr. T. He came to the Ram's Head in like the early 80s at the same time as some political figure. He was there. They were doing some sort of, because he would like, he was all into like politics. Like, I mean, it was the early 80s. So it was, you know, Nancy Reagan and everybody was don't do drugs and that whole thing. But he was at the Ram's Head because they were in Atlantic City, and the Ram's Head was the nicest place to eat anywhere near Atlantic City. And I was a huge Mr. T fan, and I was like maybe 4 or 5. And my dad calls down to the house. He's like, Mr. T's here. He's going to be coming out in a little while. There was some senator or somebody there, too, who was probably more important in the grand scheme of things, but I don't remember who that was.
And clearly he wasn't more important because we remember who Mr. T is.
Right, exactly. So I go running up there. Bonnie takes me up because I'm too young to go by myself, and we're standing out front of the Ram's Head waiting for them to come out. And Mr. T comes out, and there's not a lot of people there, but me and Bonnie are there. There might have been 1 or 2 other people standing there. Somehow they knew or whatever. And Mr. T comes out, and I'm just awestruck because I'm like 5, and this dude's huge, right? I mean, he's huge to most people, but like to a 5-year-old, this is the biggest person I've ever seen in my whole life. And he goes, "Are you good?" or something like that, you know. And Bonnie, my older sister's nice enough to go, "No, Mr. T, he's bad." And Mr. T goes, "You bad?" And he grabs me and picks me up. Now, he doesn't hurt me or anything. He's picking up a kid, you know. And he picks me up, but he holds me up like higher than his head. He goes, "Are you bad? Don't be bad. Don't do drugs." And then he puts me down, and I swear to you, I didn't take an aspirin or a Tylenol or a freaking Claritin until I was in my 20s. Not only did I never smoke pot, not once, and I swear to God it was trauma from that day, because I was up in the air looking down at him, and he yelled at me, "Don't be bad. Don't do drugs." And that was it. I mean, of all our friends, how many of them at least tried pot? I've never once smoked pot and refused to take any drugs, even healthy ones, for decades. I was like, nope, not doing this. Not doing it.
That is the greatest story I have ever heard, and I wish I was you right now.
It's the only celebrity I've ever met. It's the only celebrity I think I've ever met, and he traumatized me. I mean, in a good 1980s way that kept me from doing drugs, I guess. I don't know.
That's all you need, man. If you're going to meet one celebrity, that's the one.
That's the one. I sometimes I think about it now that I've realized that's why I'm the only, like, one of the only friends we have that never even tried pot. I'm like, all we need is to pay Mr. T to go around and pick up every kid. Like, he could knock out a couple hundred kids a day, pick them up, scream in their face. There's probably some other long-term damage, but, you know, they'll fix the drug problem. So, yeah, I had to interject with that.
Yeah. Well, I think that some of that stuff where he's like, you know, I can't kill, you know, whatever. Like, I think that was direct reference to sort of like who Mr. T, you know, the image he was trying to put forth at the time and who he sort of became, you know, later in life and later in his career. But then I also think like you can't have an action movie that does that, you know, like it didn't make sense for the rest of the movie. And then when he later on, when he takes that hat on and he's got or takes the hat off and he's got the mohawk again, it's like, all right, well, what was the point of this journey? You know, like, why did we do this?
Yeah, it was, you know, effectively justifying their way of life. Because I guess one of the things that it did was show that even though they are willing to cross that line, they're still the good guys. I guess they have to. Well, they didn't necessarily have to, because we are living in a fantasy world where they can fly a tank, but it's also, I guess, kind of nice to have some sort of justification, like, all right, yes, sometimes you have to kill the bad guys, which I don't know if I 100% agree with, but what are you going to do? In the realm of this thing, it didn't really bother me because it was like, all right, well, I'm going to make this vow, but at a certain point, I got to cross that line, and my conscience has to be clear with it. And I think they did a good job of presenting a fantasy situation wherein one's conscience could be clear after killing somebody.
Yeah, and I think by having Hannibal come up to him and talk to him, it kind of put them all on that same page of you were trying to along the lines of what you said. You're trying to distinguish their actions from the actions of the bad guys. The bad guys were killing people because they didn't care, and now you've set aside B.A. Baracus, and you've said no, he does care. He's thought this through. He's given it thought. It troubles him, but the greater good sometimes does weigh out, and like you said, it gives it weight. And again, I think it just separates him and at least Hannibal, because Hannibal came up to him and kind of got on the same page with him a little bit. And talked to him about
the Gandhi conversation.
It shows that the two of them aren't callous, and they can't just kill without without thinking about it. It does have weight, and they Face they never really gave that to. And Murdoch has kind of got a pass because he's clearly got serious mental issues. There's other problems with the Murdoch character in the role of military. It's like, well, that guy's legit not okay. So,
yeah. Well, I don't know. I kind of wanted to sort of pick apart some of the differences between these movie characters and the TV show characters, but I don't know. I feel like I jumped the gun on something Kris was going to say, which was about Jessica Biel.
Yeah, no, we can always, circle back to that. But, I don't know. What did you guys think of her? I wasn't nuts about that character.
She didn't detract from the movie for me. I've seen her in a couple other things. I don't have strong opinions about her one way or the other. She's fine. I don't know. And that's how I felt about her in this movie. She didn't add much to it for me. She wasn't popping off the screen being, I don't know, interesting. But she was a secondary character in the plot. She didn't, what's that thing I'm supposed to have? Suspension of disbelief. She didn't snap me out of it at any point. It's not like her acting was so bad that I was like, wait a second, you're an actress and I've lost the illusion. She didn't add much either. I don't know.
I think it was just more of a thing that I didn't think she was right for the part because everybody else in this movie meshed so well together, and she didn't seem to have that same. Everybody was so entertaining to watch, and she was just fine. And I felt like that was kind of a misstep because she should have been somebody that could keep up with Face. You know what I mean? And that I didn't feel like that was the situation there. On anytime it was her and him. Bradley Cooper was just I'm paying attention to him. I'm not really paying attention to you. And I feel like for her to be a believable love interest for him, she should have been on his level as far as I don't know, charisma. If I'm making any sense.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying, especially when you have a character like the character of Face, or at least the character of Face was in this movie. Where he's charismatic, he can't be tied down, he's playing all the angles, stuff like that. If there's a love interest that you're supposed to root for them to be together, you want somebody that is going to give him a run for his money, that's going to be sort of that equally is able to play the game. I can see that argument.
Yeah, the only clever thing they showed her do the whole time was giving him the key at the end. I'm trying to think of where else she played the game, like Face or Hannibal played the game, and that's the only thing I could think of. Other than that, she was always kind of behind the, it was him saving her in the photo booth from getting shot, and she wasn't able to really do anything in that first mission. She came and talked to him, and they kind of blew her off, and she didn't know, and yeah, she wasn't nearly on his level.
I thought that her team was incompetent. When they showed all the prison break stuff, which, I guess if we're going in terms of action sequences, that was the next action sequence, right? We talked about them all meeting. We talked about the We talked about the Ocean's 11 heist. You know, I guess the third action sequence was them all breaking out of prison, which I also thought was pretty entertaining. Some of it more believable than others. I liked how Hannibal got out. I like how they sprung
Again,
BA.
if even the slightest thing went wrong with Hannibal's plan, he would have been literally toast. But
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know.
Seconds.
Well, and that's another thing about Hannibal that I feel like I need to get back to. But yeah, just in terms of Jessica Biel and her team, they knew where they were gonna go next. Like, they were like, there's 2 more people he's got to get out. Like, let's go there and head him off. They knew where the A-team was gonna be, and like, they blew it. You know, like, could have been like, all right, surround the building, get every exit, blah blah blah. Instead, it's like, hey, let's go in and like kind of just meander around the crazy people and wait for somebody to bust through the wall and take Murdoch away. Like, they were not great at their jobs.
no, definitely not. Though I will say, to Jessica Biel's credit, she gave the line, "No, they're trying to fly that tank." She delivered that one quite well.
We've danced around that scene a couple times. That scene, and I remember seeing this movie in the theater. I know you said it didn't do very well in the theater. I went and saw it. I brought a date. I don't think I stayed with that person, whoever it was. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm sure I didn't stay with them.
So you're currently not with them.
Right,
So
yeah.
I'm going to go with yeah.
That checks
But
out.
yeah, and maybe that's on me for bringing a date to an A-Team movie, but
Nah, Karen and I saw that together, and we're married with 2 kids. So
see? So it's on whoever that was. It's their fault.
It's their fault.
The whole relationship. I remember when we got to that scene, that was it. I was like, well, this movie has already gotten an A+ from me, because that scene was so good. Is he trying to shoot at us? No, he's trying to fly that tank. That's the best back and forth of the year, possibly of that decade in movies. So I was like, that's it. This movie's good. Doesn't matter what they do from here on out. It could just be, nonsense references to Smurfs. I don't care. Sold.
And
Never in an action movie have I seen that.
It's one of the most insane and entertaining things I've ever seen in a movie, and it keeps getting better as the scene goes. Like, first off, huge testament to the sound design team. When the tank is falling, when the plane explodes and the tank falls out of it, and then like the tank zooms past the camera, and as the tank gets close to the camera, you hear them screaming inside of it, and then get quiet again as the tank zooms past. Like, it's such a wonderful little tiny thing that just adds to the hilarity. And then like, before they figure out, because I was with them on the inside of the tank, like, I couldn't figure out what they're doing. Like, what is he shooting at? And like, no, we're not shooting at anything. And like, oh, and I figured out pretty much at the same time Jessica Biel said it. And then like, they get toward the bottom and they just, to slow themselves down, fire everything they have into the ground. It's completely insane, and I laugh so hard every time because it's just the most brilliant, stupid action sequence I've ever seen. And the whole like ridiculous thing with the guy fishing with dynamite is just the little tiny cherry on top. It's just stupid and kitschy enough to make it work perfectly for me. And then there's her rolling out, and they ask them for directions on the way out. Like, brilliant, just brilliant.
Yeah, it's. I think it's one of the best parts of the movie. I mean, I love that scene too. It's amazing. I think that's, though, a good example of, one of the places that this movie had some major strengths, and then sort of where it's hard to get past, the ways in which some of the things didn't work, right? Because the dialogue when they're in the tank, the dialogue between the 4 of them is amazing. Like, all 4 of them are such good actors, and they had such great chemistry together. But then, I feel like it really highlights some of the places where, you could see the fingerprints of the, of the writer or the director or whatever it is, because like, there was times that Liam Neeson and Charlito Copley, they just and Bradley Cooper to a certain extent, where they just were like, it was like, what is this character supposed to be, right? Because so first of all, like, you could see that this movie was a product of the year that it was produced in, like 100%. Like you weren't going to get a bigger A-list cast than those three, at least, right? Like,
well, outside of the Expendables, which is what a lot of people compared this to.
Liam Neeson, just a year or two before, was in Taken. Like, this movie was in the middle of that Taken trilogy, right? Bradley Cooper, just the year before, had done The Hangover. So, like, he was right in the middle of that Hangover trilogy. And District 9 was, I think, the year before as well. So, like, you know...
Wait, who's in District 9?
Charlito Copley, the guy that was Murdoch.
Oh. I only saw District 9 once. I didn't put that together, but okay.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a chameleon, that guy. Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like
And for 2010, Jessica Biel was probably... in 2010, my guess is Jessica Biel was one of the bigger actresses you could have... I mean, you know, aside from, like, a Julia Roberts or an Angelina Jolie. Like, I feel like that might have been her heyday, like 2010 to 2014 or something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's another place where she didn't make a big enough impact on me to want to see if there was, like, some big property that she was, you know, involved in just the year or two before.
There must have been, because I know her name, so she must have been like, I'm not great with actors and actresses' names. That's not my strong suit.
she was from Seventh Heaven was like the big deal, and then she
TV
left
actress.
that show to do less savory things because she was like, you know, Seventh Heaven was this super Christian show.
I mean,
what with the name and all.
The three of them, at least, were, like, huge at the time. You know, and I think Quentin Rampage Jackson was sort of cast because they wanted somebody that could be Mr. T, that could, you know, that could not do a impression of Mr. T, but, like, have the energy and charisma of Mr. T. Which I think is why I enjoy him the best, because, like, you know, I don't have anything else to base him off of, you know? I'm just like, I look at this movie and, like, this guy is holding my attention the whole time and just, like, killing it, you know? Like, I think he's just one of my favorite parts of the movie. But, you know, when I compare, like Hannibal, for example, you know, like, Liam Neeson, and maybe he was doing a little bit of, like, a holdover thing from Taken, you know, where he was telling us about his amazing set of skills. You know, like, he really harped on the plan a lot of the time. Like, he and Face were, like, constantly at odds, being like, you know, like, you don't listen, Face, you know, it's the plan, we got to do the plan, blah blah blah. Like, to a certain point where you're like, dude, Liam Neeson, like, shut up, like, will you shut up about the plan? Because
his plans were so good.
Well, but, like,
insane.
I always felt like in the TV show that, like, George Papard, like that he kind of just, like, rolled with what was going on. Like, the most ridiculous stuff could happen, and he would just, like, smile like somebody's kindly old grandpa and be like, oh, I guess we're doing this now. And then at the end, he would go like, I love it when a plan comes together. And it was almost as if he was like, didn't expect this to go so well. Like, you know, like, it was just a completely different vibe.
Yeah, like, they really kind of rejiggered his character around the phrase, I love it when a plan comes together, to be, like, super literal. Like, no, he really loves it when a plan comes together. Like, this is what he lives for. And I guess they kind of did that to play off of Face, to try to be like, make Face kind of the main character, I guess, to have his, like, growth arc be that he's great at the chaos and getting into trouble and his heart's in the right place, but he doesn't plan things out, and so he gets to learn how to plan things a bit.
Yeah, and with Murdoch, you know, I mean, like, I feel like from the 80s TV show, like, Murdoch was just, like, he was wacky, you know, like, he was the guy that you expected to say or do a wacky, out-of-character thing that sort of, like, threw everybody off or made them laugh or, like sort of put the villain on edge. But like in this, I literally thought that he was like psychotic sometimes. Like they were like zapping him with electricity, and he's like, I don't feel pain anymore. And I was like, what is happening here?
I appreciated that. Again, it's been a while since I watched the TV show, but while I think they might have upped it a little bit, that's little kid Sean watching the A-Team. This is kind of like the grown-up version of, like, I don't know. In my memory, Murdoch is crazy. He's, insane. You don't know what's going to happen, and it's not like, oh, he's a wild card. It's no, he's got a clinical issue. Like this is seriously, you don't know what's going to happen next, and they just escalated that, and I enjoyed that a lot. You're right. They probably took it a lot further than the TV show ever did, but I grown-up Sean needed it to go a little further, and that's what they gave me.
I think when the dialogue worked and they were all riffing off each other and having fun and, sort of saying these, like, jokey, like, out-of-the-box things, and it wasn't just the A-Team doing that. It was other characters, too. Like, I love the scene where the villains are in the car and the one guy's like, he's like, put the gun to his head, and the guy's like, oh, he's like showing him how to like screw on the silencer, in the car, and he's like commenting on everything that he's doing wrong and stuff like that.
Please, my last request, don't let this guy shoot me.
Yeah, I mean, like when everybody was riffing off each other and the they were finding these funny bits is when it was the best. And then I think when you had the sort of fingerprints of the director or the writer or whatever it is that got really heady into like, this is the plan, I think that's when the movie fell apart a little bit for me.
Which, and to their credit, that was a good move, but is a departure from the TV show. But you can't, again, we're not looking for a shot-for-shot remake, or are we? Mm-hmm. The bad guys in the original TV show were about as flat as you could make them, right? I mean, like, other than maybe like a maniacal, right before the commercial line of, but they'll soon find out their doom. Like, other than maybe that, you just had like nameless, bland, I'm the thugs. But I think giving them depth and that wittiness was it filled the time between the action sequences very well.
Yeah, and speaking of the action sequences, I also want to just mention how much I enjoy. Like, as soon as every single time Karen and I watch this movie, once the containers show up on screen, we're just like, we both sit up like, all right, let's do this. Because it's when they're literally playing like with 3 different cranes and spinning the containers around of like trying to do the whole, like, then they get fireworks. Like, it's so far over the top that I just can't help but like sit in awe of and marvel how completely absurd this whole sequence is. But I love that bit.
That was another sequence that didn't work for me. Like again, like, it's a lot of action scenes woven together by plot, and a lot of them I really like. I like the heist thing. I like when they're breaking out of jail. There's some in the middle that are fun and interesting, but the sort of like 3-card Monty at the end with the cranes, I think it was the right instinct, but I think that there was so much that was crazy about it that at the end I was like, I don't think this could happen. Like, maybe I should stop complaining. Maybe this is exactly the thing that I wanted it to be. I feel like the embodiment of Hannibal is that, like, we just put a bunch of crap together and hope it works out. And then when it does, you go, see, the plan worked. Because I feel like that's how the end was, that, they're like, we'll do this and we'll do that, and then they knock over all the shipping crates, and like, it's literally as if like all the blocks fall off the table, like, there's a big mess on the floor, and as if they still go, ta-da!
I loved it. I loved it so because everything did go to crap, and then they had to kind of salvage it. And I mean, once he got to the point where I kind of lost the thread. I mean, I was still very, very entertained, but I really lost the thread, and it took me I think a couple of times of watching it to fully understand what was happening with they took the sound clip that Hannibal recorded of Major Dad saying, "Hannibal, don't do this." Then they put it in a doll, and then they took the thing out of the doll and put it inside of a bulletproof helmet that they put on Murdoch so that he could pretend to be the general when they shot him in the head, and it was bulletproof, but since he was crazy, all the sound shook up his head, and it didn't really matter all that much, so they convinced the guy that he was not really... I just got so confused. It was a very convoluted plan, but again, I didn't care because things went boom, and they went boom so well.
I got all that. I understood their intention of, and it was explained very well, of drawing Lynch out because he's a guy that lurks in the shadows, and that you need to draw him out with something that seems like a sure thing, and then you need to expose him. Like the writing and the sort of like, you know, setup of the heist with the, you know, the cups and the balls was like moderately well done. Like it was good enough that that I think it did the scene justice. Like it was sort of just that you know, for things to fall apart that badly, where like the entire ship, you know, sinks and explodes and all of the crates fall to the ground, I was like, how is it that they're still able to expose this at the end? Like, how is it that they still have a crane ready to do their big reveal? It was I don't know, it was a little bit nuts.
It was completely nuts, and I think that's what I loved about it. Yeah, I finally like really picked up on it the second time I saw it, but I remember seeing it in the theater and like being so distracted by all the shiny bits and not really, I didn't really follow like how they made the sound and all that stuff. I guess I just kind of missed something, but either way, it all made sense to me eventually. I just kind of missed it the first time around.
You could have blinked and missed it. I think they showed you the baby dolls for like 2 seconds. I did follow it, but I could see how somebody would miss it again if they blinked. I think it was like one quick shot of somebody playing with the baby doll and like slowing down the sound on it to make it apparently sound exactly like that other guy, just by slowing down the mama slower. I don't exactly understand why that worked, but
well, they didn't slow it down. They put a recording of him because Hannibal had that conversation.
Mama.
Yeah, they had that whole conversation with him where he said, "Hannibal, don't do this," and then they showed Hannibal had recorded that conversation, and then they showed him taking that sound and using the chip from the baby doll and re-recording over the baby doll's speech and using the little baby doll chip inside the helmet that they put on Murdoch.
Right. Yeah, I basically followed it the first time I saw it, but again, it was quick, and I could see how someone could lose it. What was I going to say? But I lost it. No, I got nothing. No, it was... I remember it. Paul said it was moderately well done. I think so, too, because I think they did have something of a convoluted plan that they wanted you to follow, and by showing you the 3-card Monty, although it wasn't 3-card Monty, he was doing the cup ball thing, but same concept, by doing that while they explain that we have to draw them out, like that was kind of all interlocked, like cut scenes or whatever, if I remember correctly. They kept jumping back and forth a little bit. I think it was well enough done. You said moderately well done. I think they did it because I think they did it like the goal there's got to be to have it so that everyone can follow along and still get to your action scenes unencumbered. And I think they managed to pull that off, which I think is the only goal there. As long as everyone can follow along, more or less, and you get to that nice, clean, unencumbered action scene with a little bit of meaning behind it, I think you did your job exactly what you were trying to accomplish.
That's the if you were confused, if you watched the super, super, super extended cut, then they have Murdoch being like, well, you see, we're going to take this tape recorder and use the, they really spell it out for you, but you didn't see that. You just saw the extended cut. See?
And he won't see my face, so he won't know it's not me.
Put this ketchup in here.
Right. That was. They lucked out on that ketchup. The bullet hit the ketchup packet because when you see it at the end, like the helmet, there's only like a couple lines of ketchup wrapped around it. Like, really lucked out there too.
Again, one of those plans that really needed to flawlessly come together to, actually be pulled off. But I don't know. I think that kind of covers it, right? I mean, is there anything else we need to talk about with this movie besides? I overall love this movie. I'll watch it again and again. Even though having this conversation has exposed a few of the I've never really bothered to try and dissect it, right? Because I've only ever sat down and watched it and been, that was awesome. And then every other time I've watched it since, I've just been totally enthralled by the awesomeness of it and never really put much thought into why I liked it. And seriously considering it. And even with the flaws that have kind of come to my attention, I still love it. I will still absolutely watch this movie over and over again. What are your guys' final thoughts?
I love this movie. I loved it in the theater. I think it didn't do well because you just didn't have a property that could draw people in enough. I mean, I love the A-Team because I grew up on it and I got that nostalgia for it, and that got me out there. But I don't think it was the movie's fault. I think it was a great action movie, and anybody who saw it, kind of like what I said with Mortal Kombat, if you went to an A-Team movie and you got this and weren't happy, you're wrong. Like, this is everything that movie should have been. Not necessarily for everyone. It's an action flick. I loved it. It's on my top action movies of all time list at number 49, which seems low, but
there's a lot of action movies out there.
There's a lot of action movies out there. The fact that it's on the list makes it great, in my opinion. And I'd recommend it to anybody who thinks maybe they want to watch an A-Team movie. This is the movie to watch.
Yeah, I recommend it. I know that I was hard on it at times during the course of the evening, but all in all, I recommend it. I feel like, having watched it, 10, 12 years ago, and then having watched it now, it doesn't hold up as well as I thought. But I certainly think that it is an enjoyable movie, and I would certainly spend my night with this movie more so than a lot of things. So it's gonna get a thumbs up from me. And then I would give the caveat that after you're done, pop on some 80s A-Team and enjoy some Mr. T, because that's a thing that you should do.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I did after watching this. Watch some original A-Team, and I'm hankering to find the time to blow through that series because that show's fun, man.
Now, all of a sudden, I want to go online and buy a box of that Mr. T cereal from the 80s and eat that. I know that's going to make me sick, but I think I might do it anyway.
I was always worried about Mr. T in the A-Team because they had to drug him a lot to get him on planes. That was always a major part of every episode, and I was like, I don't think it's good to be sedated every single day. This doesn't seem healthy.
So, real quick, I know we're trying to end this, but I do appreciate two things. Well, no. I appreciate one thing, that they explained why an airborne ranger has a fear of flying, because while it didn't pose a problem to young Sean watching the A-Team, in retrospect, that's a serious question, and they answered that in this, so that's nice of them. And second, they could have just leaned into that for one scene. I know they leaned into a lot of things, but they could have just thrown in a scene where Mr. T was like, ain't no drugs in this milk, is there? And that really would have been nice, because that's really what it came down to. I mean, I don't know if he ever said that line on the original series, but that's basically what happened in most of the episodes, right? Ain't no drugs in this milk, is there?
Yeah, exactly. And then they'd stick a needle in his neck. Yeah, I did think that was a nice distinction, that he wasn't afraid of flying. He was afraid of flying with Murdoch.
Right, or he'd grown a fear of flying after falling out of the helicopter. Yeah, either way, it was because Rangers jump out of planes. That's what they do. How are you a Ranger, but you got a fear of... But no, they solved that. Good work. Solid work by them.
Yeah, that was very well handled.
Agreed.
Solid approval. All right. Well, I guess that's going to wrap it up for our show. I think it's time for us to begin our next conversation, as in what is our next film going to be. So, our next recording date I have written down is June 30th. So, notable movie release. We could switch to a new movie, or we could continue with the alphabet and move on to the letter B. So, the only notable stuff that I came up with were coming out before then is Cruella, In the Heights, Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, and F9, which is the Fast and Furious movie. Now, do we want to cover something like that, or maybe something that I didn't mention, or do we want to move on to the letter B?
I have never seen a Fast and Furious movie, so to start with F9 seems like a solid plan. I'm in!
I also have never seen any Fast and Furious movies. Maybe,
Wild!
Maybe like the first
Wild!
one.
I have also not seen any Fast and Furious.
Unbelievable! If you took a random selection of 3 people out of 1,000 in this country, I don't think you could hit that mark in 100 tries.
Never one of them.
It might be
They're
really
hugely popular.
It might be really fun for us to watch it together. Like it might, that might be a hoot if we have never seen one of these things and watch it. But I'm not sure anybody wants to listen to that. Like I don't know if you want to watch listen to the 3 of us watch, the 9th installment and then like talk about all the things we didn't understand.
Why did this character do this? I don't understand the background.
Who are these people?
Well, the 4 listeners we have are just screaming at their podcast. If you watch the first 8 movies, there's a lot of story built up already. I don't know. Yeah, that might not be a great plan.
All right, so what's the vote then? Do we want to try and go with a new movie, or do we want to move on to the letter B?
None of those movies are really striking my fancy. I mean, I don't know that I have to be excited about a movie for us to talk about it, but I don't know that Cruella is high on my list of things I want to watch. But I'll do it if everybody else does.
Yeah, I mean, I'll watch any of those you tell me to watch, but none of them are jumping out at me. And I will say this about the Disney live-action crap. It's driving me up a wall at this point. I know Cruella's at least it's like some backstory on a character that already exists, but they've just taken every cartoon that I loved as a child, turned it into live action, and I don't think it was necessary. And I'm sick of it.
Totally agree with you.
And the fact that the quote-unquote live-action Lion King was nominated for the best animated feature should have told you a lot about the problems with that one.
Yeah, I was. I know Karen would love for us to watch In the Heights because she is just a huge Lin-Manuel Miranda fan. I don't know. It's not none of those things are really jumping out at me. So my vote goes that we move on to the letter B.
Love it.
Great.
All right. So now that we're moving on to the letter B, I have to just eat humble pie because I was telling you how I was so excited because I had a great alliteration for B, and then I explained to Jacqueline what it was. And in explaining it to her, I was trying to list all the famous actors that are in it. I mean, some good actors. We're talking Jonathan Lithgow, Peter Wellers, Jeff Goldblum, Christopher Lloyd. Like, the list goes on. This is a movie from my childhood that I love. And then I looked it up to tell her the rest of the actors because I couldn't think of them all. And the movie doesn't start with the letter B. It starts with the letter A.
That was the letter A?
Yeah.
What movie is it?
The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai.
Oh.
And if you haven't watched that movie, oh my God. Christopher Lloyd and Jonathan Lithgow playing off of each other as crazy aliens plotting to take over the world. It is, I say aliens. They're not technically from space. They're from another dimension that exists within the same realm as ours, but you can't see them unless you go through this mountain like Peter Wellers does after Cowboy Jeff Goldblum helps him do a surgery. It doesn't matter because we're not watching it because it starts with the letter A. I have a different one that's not an alliteration to put forward for B.
All right, fair enough.
It makes me sad.
Well, then what is it?
For B, you guys really want to vote me down, but I'm going to put forth Baby. B-A-B-Y. Came out in the early 80s. The main star was the guy who played Greatest American Hero on the TV series. He might be the only famous person in it. It's about a baby brontosaurus that they find alive in the jungles of, I'm going to go with the Congo. But half of that information could be wrong.
If we choose that, I won't be heartbroken. That sounds like something I could totally rip apart.
Oh, you'll be able to rip it apart, my friend. You will be able to tear into this. It's something I remember watching as a child. I think the title might be longer. It might be like Baby of the Lost Jungle or Baby.
I'm trying to find it on IMDb.
Baby.
You said it was the Greatest American Hero guy?
I'm 90% sure it was the Greatest American Hero guy, but again, half of what I say is wrong all the time.
So we're talking William Catt. I just looked up Baby, and nothing was showing up like that.
Watch, this one doesn't start with the letter B either.
Let's see.
I think it's not off to a great start when you don't know the names of anything or what letters they start with.
I'm looking it up now. Baby, Secret of the Lost Legend.
There it is, 1985.
85. What did I say? Early 80s. That's about right.
I've never even heard of this before.
It wasn't great. The reason I thought of it, one, I watched it a lot as a child, and the reason I thought of it is I was recently going through a collection of trading cards, and I came across Baby, Secret of the Lost Legend trading cards, and I was like, they made trading cards for this movie? That's wild. I haven't thought about this movie in 30 years. So that's what brought it to the surface of my memory hole.
You heard it here first, folks. Glowing recommendation. It wasn't great.
There's your pull quote for the back of the box. It wasn't great, Sean Doyle. All right, Baby, Secret of the Lost Legend. That's an option. Paul, what do you have for us?
All right. So when we, when we did this last month, and we all, we all talked at the end and figured out we were going to do A-Team. I kind of felt like the big issue was that we had all sort of talked beforehand, and that we had, that we had all kind of like sort of agreed on a movie that we all liked. And I think that, us saying that we're going to discuss it now at the end and not tell each other what movies were our picks, I think that's sort of better. But as I was looking through my list, I was like, well, there's certainly movies that I want to subject you guys to. Like, there are some things where when we get to them, I'm going to be like, this is a thing that I want you guys to watch, and I want to talk about with you guys and unpack. But then I was like, maybe not every pick should be something that I've seen a bunch of times and that I'm excited about. This is the chance to see some new things or some things that are notable that I haven't seen before. So I don't know. I came up with one pick that was something that, I think is a movie that I'm told that, people should see and is a notable movie, but that I've never seen. And then I came up with a pick of something I've seen a bunch of times that I like watching. So which one do you want?
Wow. I don't know. They both sound very interesting to me.
Oh God. Let's go with notable. My vote's for notable. What's this notable movie that you haven't seen that you think we should be watching?
So
based on nonsense.
Again, I can't speak to if it's good or not because I've never seen it, but I've heard enough about it that I feel like I should see it. The movie is called The Big Night. It was made in the early to mid 90s. It's got the Tooch in it, Stanley Tooch, before he was traveling around Italy and telling everybody what kind of spaghetti to make. This is like young Stanley Tucci and I don't remember the other actor in it, but they are like starting an Italian restaurant. The whole the story is about them in this Italian restaurant. So
oh yeah,
that
what year was this?
1996. It's 1996. I'm looking it up as you're talking.
96.
It's got Stanley Tucci and Tony Shalhoub.
So that's going to be my pick.
I've never heard of this one.
I have also never heard of that one.
Allison Janney, Minnie Driver, Isabella Rossellini. There's a lot of people here.
Wow. That's Big Night. There it is, 96.
Campbell Scott. I don't know who that is. Never even heard of that name, but he's probably important.
Oh, fascinating. All right. Well, I guess I kind of feel like my pick might fall flat, but then again, I don't know. It's a movie I saw recently, but saw exactly once. And now that I had a little bit more space between it and myself, I would very much like to watch again and see if it still impresses me as much as it did upon first viewing. And that would be Bill and Ted Face the Music. I saw it once as soon as it came out, and I remember really liking it. Me and Paul had a conversation about it, but now that I've had a little bit more time to digest it and maybe watch the other two real quick beforehand, since we have a month before we actually watch it, I'd be interested to see if I still like the new movie or if it was just like, this was the right thing at the right time.
So I guess the way that we need to do this is nobody can vote for their own pick.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually prevent us from having a three-way tie, but it probably greatly reduces the odds.
All right. Who wants to vote first?
I'll go. I'm going to vote for Chris's movie. I thought I was going to vote for Paul's, but I actually didn't watch the Bill and Ted thing. It's been on like the top of my list of things to watch for how long ago did it come out? 4 months? 5 months? 6 months? It came out during pandemic.
Time has no meaning. Who knows?
Time has no meaning. So I like every time me and Jacqueline sit down to watch a movie, that's in the top three. It's like, are we watching this, or Bill and Ted? And we just haven't done it yet. So, and I loved those movies growing up. So I'll vote for that because I got to get to it.
Well, Kris, I think then your pick is going to win because I'm not voting for the Baby Dinosaur movie.
Which, amusingly enough, would have been my vote for the Baby Dinosaur. Because out of the two of them, I mean, the Big Night sounds fantastic and very interesting and probably something we should see. But I'm fascinated by this baby movie.
You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be.
Well, I mean, Mystery Science Theater fan and all. There's definitely
they should have done it. They would have had a great time with it.
All right. So is that the consensus then? Are we happy with Bill and Ted Face the Music?
Yeah.
Again, I'm thrilled with it. I've been planning to watch it and just haven't had I don't know how I haven't watched it yet. So this makes it easy.
I have a lot.
Right.
I have a lot to say about Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't get to have a big full conversation. Like, right, was that one of our big long couple hour phone calls, or was that something we talked about real quick and then we're going to talk about this more later? I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
Either way,
we could start this podcast right now. I mean, I'm
not going to have a lot to contribute, but I'll try.
I like the name.
I'm glad to see Bill again because it was just Bill and Ted and then Lost Boys and then we lost him. Where did he go?
He did a lot of directing, I think.
All right. Save it for next month. Save it for next month.
All right.
Yeah,
you're right.
All right, then. We'll be recording on June 30th. I don't know when the episode will post, whenever I'm done editing it, I suppose. But our next episode is going to be Bill and Ted Face the Music. I'm excited. I'm excited, Sybil. I'm looking forward to watching it again. All right. Well, then I guess that's going to wrap things up. Theater Near You is a part of the Geekade Podcast Network. And if you'd like to get in touch with us to share your comments, movie suggestions, or whatever, you can send us an email at mail@geekade.com. We can also be found on most social media outlets and the official Geekade Discord server, all of which can be found in our show notes. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time in Theater Near You.